Hi everyone, I'm going to be doing a slightly different type of video this time around to my normal Star Wars vintage videos. I'm going to be looking at a Warhammer 40k Space Orc. Now this chap is around 33 years old, so he's one of the quite a vintage mini, and he's in the old Rogue Trader era, and he's made out of lead. Now, this particular guy, what makes him so special, he's actually quite rare. So he is an Orc Genestealer hybrid. So you don't get that anymore. 40k Games Workshop, they've kind of established the lore a bit better these days. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, they were still deciding, you know, kind of the rules of everything and the factions and everything. So yeah, he's quite desirable simply because he's a model that you can no longer get in that style. An Orc is an Orc, a Genestealer is a Genestealer. The closest you get is Genestealer cults, but they are humans that have turned into Genestealers, not Orcs. He is looking like a pirate because he was part of the Freebooters group of minis, and they were a fantastic set of minis. I think there was around 18 in the original set, and the sculpting on them was brilliant. The designs were really, really good. Now, this chap, I say he's rare. On eBay, I've seen him go for up to £100 just for one tiny little model. I did not pay that. I recently bought him off eBay and I got him for £12.50 at an auction, so I was very pleased with that. Now, obviously, the reason I didn't have to pay quite so much for him is because, as you can see, he's already been painted and he's missing his arms and weapons. I have the arms and weapons for him that would have originally come with him because they were quite standard. So my intention is to strip the paint of him, rebuild him, repaint him, and get him looking as good as ever. So we'll just take a quick look at him now. He's actually not been too badly painted. Whoever painted him back in the day, they didn't do too bad a job. I like how they've done a blend from the purple into the green there to obviously get across the hybrid nature of him. He's got a little, what looks like a lantern on his belt there. Now, what I didn't realise until I had this model in hand is he has a tail. Now, of course, no Orcs have tails, but a Genestealer hybrid clearly does. So that was nice to see. There's a transfer on the back there that's been quite nicely applied. Yeah, and on the whole, it's not a bad little paint scheme. Even if this is the first time I've actually bought a pre-painted model, but it's quite nice to actually just have a look. You know, even if the skill level of the person before isn't quite the same as yours, you can still take notes from it. You know, there's little choices of colours and, you know, little details that actually, you know, I quite like the stripes on the trousers, for example. I quite like how they've done the brown on the vest with kind of a black wash in the middle there. So there's definitely some cues. I think, you know what, when I do come to repaint it, I might kind of I might honour the original paint scheme to a little degree. Okay, what I'm going to do next then is try and take the base from the model. Now, these models were just simply super glued in. They have a metal tab at the bottom, but I think I need to get that base off if I'm going to strip it off paint. I'll put a new base on it anyway. Now, hopefully, yeah, with a bit of there. Well, there you go. That didn't take much coming off at all, did it? And in fact, you can see he is from 1990. Copyright Games Workshop, and as you can see, he is a Freebooter, although I'm not sure that's been spelt correctly. That looks like Freebooter to me. But there you go. Okay, I'm gonna cut there and I'll come back and we'll try and get this mini stripped. So to strip the model, I'm going to be using AK Paint Stripper. I went off to the hobby shop yesterday and picked up a bottle of this, and you can tell it's paint stripper because there's a picture of a stripper on the side, so that's fun, isn't it? I paid £7 for this bottle. There's how many mil is in there? 100 mil, so hopefully this should do the job. So what I'm going to do, I've got myself a little tray. This was just a tray I found from an old picture hanging set. but what I needed is a nice little waterproof and plastic holder, so I can pop the Mini inside there. Let's open up this bottle. Okie dokie. And I think we're just gonna cover the Mini completely. Right. Admittedly, I spilt that all over the show, but never mind. Okay, what we're going to do now is leave that to rest for a couple of minutes. The bottle recommends at least only 3 minutes. Okay, well, we'll see. I'll cut right there and come back in soon. Okay, so I've given him about 5 minutes now, and I can see that the paint is definitely starting to bubble off him. So what I'm going to do is give him a quick brush over with an old toothbrush. Now I've put a glove on. Apparently the manufacturers say you don't need to wear gloves, but I'm not going to take any chances. So let's get him out. Ooh, yeah, and we can see. We can certainly see he's looked better. Okay, this is the test. How easy will this brush off? Wow, look at that. Very easy is the answer. Just give it a quick wash. Look at that. He's coming up pretty good. I'm quite impressed with that, I have to say. So this is the first time I've tried to strip a Mini before, and he's coming up perfect. Okay, now this does make a mess. You can see how much this is sprayed everywhere, so I do recommend putting towel down as I have. Just take a look at that. Yeah, I'm really impressed with that actually. So yeah, that was let's say AK paint stripper, so that definitely gets thumbs up from me. Okay, I'm going to carry on stripping this, clean it up and dry it, and we'll come back. Okay, so now we can take our proper first look at him without that paint on. And as I say, that worked really well, and he's come up a treat. Now, he has, however, revealed a secret. This tail that I mentioned before, if you notice, it's a completely different colour to the rest of him. And when I tapped it, hear that, against that, it's plastic. It's not part of the original model. So the person who had this before actually glued that tail to the bottom of it. So now I've got a bit of a conundrum, because I like to have things as they were, as they should be, but at the same time that is quite a good little mod. And again, I like to sort of honour the owners of the model before, the work they did before. So I think I'm going to keep it on there. What do you think? Is that the right way to go? At the end of the day, I could always clip it off at a later stage should I want to, but I think for the time being I'm going to keep it on there, because I think it does add a little something to him. Makes him a lot more Genestealer-y. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do then, before we start working out what sort of arms and weapons to give him, obviously he needs to go into a base. Now I do have a bunch of original bases for the orcs of that time period, but I kind of felt like they never stay in the base properly, because you're trying to glue a piece of metal into a piece of plastic. I also thought the bases were a little bit too small as well. Their feet never were quite attached onto them. So what I'm going to do, which is what I do with all my orc models, I've got a bunch of Citadel bases, and so I'm just going to take a 30mm base, which you can see is noticeably larger. Obviously there's no slot for this base, so I'm going to clip this off. Now some people might think that's a terrible thing to do, but nevertheless, pinning him into a base is a lot better than trying to glue him in. So just 2 cuts. There it goes, and we clip that off. So then next thing to do is to get a pin vise, a little hand drill, drill a hole into the bottom of his foot, and then I'm going to put a metal pin in there. So let me just come and do that. And here he is on his base, and he's all on there firmly. He's not going anywhere. Okay, so next thing to do is pick out some arms and some weapons for him. So at the time, all these Space Orcs came with weapons and arms sprues like these. Now these can be a little hard to pick up these days. They can be actually worth more money than the actual models themselves often. But if you have a look on eBay, they do come up from time to time. You can try and get them. You don't necessarily have to get them, brand new condition like this. In fact, what I've managed to do is, over time, I bought a used Space Orcs Plastics kit, the original one that came out, and that came with loads of arms and loads of weapons. So I've got all the arms and weapons from the time that I need. I haven't picked out the arms yet, but I have picked out the weapons. I'm going to go with a sword, the more sort of cutlass looking one, as he is a pirate after all, and I'm just going to go with a standard machine gun. And I have, of course, drilled out the barrel. And here he is with his arms and his weapons on. So he's actually starting to look like a complete model now. So next thing I'm going to do is just stick some watered down PVA glue onto the base. I'm going to keep things very old school, and I'm just going to put some texture on the base here. With that glue spread evenly around the base, just a case of plonking them in to the sand, and voila. Okay, now I'm just going to put a bit more watered down PVA on top of that, and then I'm going to prime it, and then we can get on with the painting. So I'm all ready, set up to start the painting on this one. I've got a fresh sheet of kitchen towel, my wet palettes ready to go, and I've got my old favourite paint brushes. Honestly, these are workhorses as far as I'm concerned. Green Stuff World, the Gold series, the Kolinsky ones, so they always keep a point. I've got size 2, which I probably do, I would say, about 90% of the work with, and then a size 0 for the real fine detail. And what I'm going to do is just start laying down base colours. So I'm going to start with, in no particular order, gunmetal for the weapons. I'm just going to cover them over completely. I'm going to use some magic blue for his trousers and some sandry dust for his vest. Because what I try and do is work from the the areas that are further back and then work up. So it just makes it easier. You don't want to get paint on areas that you don't want to. Okay, so let's give this blue a shake. This is a really nice colour, blue. Add a little bit of water. And off we go. Next, I've mixed up some Mournfan brown and some Fiston red to create a sort of a reddy brown colour, obviously. And I'm just going to go in and do the boots. And while I got the Mournfan brown out, I'm also going to go around and do the straps and the belts. Okay, time to throw some washes over those colours now. So probably no surprises here. Agrat's Earthshade, a brown wash, which I'm going to throw over the tan and the brown belts and boots. And then Nuln Oil for the weapons, and Drakenhof Nightshade, which is a blue wash over the blue trousers. Going to take Runelorn Brass and put some on the back plate, and also the steel toe caps on his boots, and a mix of Moon Yellow and Corax White to make a sort of pale yellow. And I'm just going to do the sleeves in that colour. Now I'm going to use some Goblin Green from Vallejo to cover all of the skin. Okay, next we're going to throw some shades over those colours. So Biltown Green over the skin. I'm going to do a mix of Cassandora Yellow with a bit of water to go over the sleeves, and I'll do a stronger amount over the actual lantern light. And then over the metallic parts, I'm just going to do a wash of Agrat's Earthshade. Next, I'm going to put some black on the lantern casing here. We can get it into focus. And also the handle of the sword that he has underneath him there. And I'm going to use some Scrag Brown on the sword scabbard. Okay, so I'm just going to apply the last of the base colours now. So I'm going to put some black on the sword, around the hilt, and on the gun, on the casing there. Obviously put some white on the skulls, on his front there, and also on his teeth. And then I'm going to colour in some metallics, so any hoops, earrings, that kind of thing, and the sort of the pommel of his sword, and iconography on his knee. Okay, so that's the last of those base colours put on. So now it's a case of throwing on a couple of washes over what we've just done on those metallics. So I'm going to do a red wash over the gold parts and a black wash over the silver. I'm going to leave the white as it is. I like that sort of pearly white look. It adds a little bit more to the cartoony look of the figure, so I'm going to keep it as is. So what we're going to do now is start highlighting this guy up. I'm going to start with the skin, and all I'm going to do is essentially take the green colour that I used before, that goblin green, I'm just going to add a touch of white to it. And I'm just going to keep doing that, increasing it, adding small layers onto the highlights of the skin, mostly on the raised areas, until I get it to a state that I want. Okay, so that's where we are now after the face has been highlighted. I'm not entirely happy with it. What I tried to do is obviously add in some pink as well, because I figure as he's a Tyranid cross, it needed to have a little bit of something extra to make him look that way. Yeah, the trouble is transitioning from a green up to a pink is not an obvious way to do it. But I'm going to keep it as is. Yeah, I might come back and change it. I've also just dotted in the eyes as well. So now it's a case of just going around the rest of the model and sorting out all the highlights everywhere else. Now, I could go through and sort of say, oh, all the different colours I use, but generally speaking, I've just added white to the colours that I've already used. And of course, with your edge highlighting, it's always best to try and find straight lines you can use. With these old lead models, there isn't very many straight lines, in all honesty. They're not sculpted in quite that way, so it's a little bit more difficult, but just take your time and carry on going through, and just highlight it up wherever you think it needs it. Okay, so here he is after those highlights. I didn't go too mad. I did do a couple sort of around the lantern, around the backs here, the sort of the leather straps and things, a couple around the swords and the gun casing. What you might notice is I went back in and I did some stripes on his trousers. I didn't think he was looking pirate enough, and also remembering how the original paint job had those red and white stripes, I wanted to honour that a little bit. So yeah, I think that's made a bit of difference. So I'm going to call that done for the time being. What I'm going to do now is base him. So I'm just going to throw a couple of colours over there and dry brush it. I'm also going to do a one of those Freebooter transfers for the back. So I've got an orc transfer sheet, so I'll pick out one of those and put it on his back plate, which is the thing we used to do back in the day. So let me go off and do those things, and I'll come back and I will show you the final reveal. With those final little bits done, here is the finished model. I think he definitely looks the part. He looks like a pirate enough to me. Got his back plate all marked up. So he's got the purple parts coming through as this sort of Genestealer hybrid. The tail, as I say, I left that on. The base, yeah, did lots of different colours. That's just the way I base mine. No particular real reason. I just like colourful bases. So yeah, pretty pleased with this one. He's going to be look good in the collection. So just one final thing to do is give this guy a little home, add him to the rest of the gang. So no Warhammer collection is complete without a detail cabinet displaying your models, and mine is no exception. So here we got the rest of my painted up vintage orcs. These are all from the sort of 1988-1989 range. They're all obviously metal. And most of these guys are the Mad Boys range, which is my favourite range. So there's a little spot right here. So let's stick this chap in. There we go. He's got a new home with the rest of them. Cool. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that little video. I say a little bit different. I'll try and bring some more Warhammer painting videos in the future. I promise they'll be quicker the next time round. I know this one was a bit of a long one. But yeah, hopefully you found that some benefit, and I'll see you in the next one.